Hi, this is Scott. I thought I'd walk through Chapter 2 with you and highlight some key points, starting with the title of the chapter. As you will remember from the orientation video, one of the biggest struggles we have with new investors is their need or want to overanalyze a property before they finally work up the gumption to get an LOI submitted and get a property ultimately put under contract. And so in this chapter we're doing a little arm twisting here with you and entitling it Ready, Fire, Aim, meaning that it's not that we don't want you to do your homework before you make an offer, but certainly don't overanalyze a property. The time to really do deep analysis and look under every rock is during the due diligence period, when you have control over the property via having the property under a purchase contract. So in this chapter we're asking you to become familiar with reviewing properties, and we do that by having you jump on LoopNet and look for some properties in a target market that interests you, and hopefully through this exercise you get a sense for the type of information that's readily available about a property, and get some experience reviewing properties and doing some light analysis, and hopefully stirring up some questions in your own mind about properties, in particular questions you would have about things you'd want to know more about. So hopefully this exercise did that for you and started giving you an understanding of what a property search might entail, and maybe got you a little bit more comfortable with analysis, and as time goes by you'll find that you'll be able to spot properties that you have no interest in relatively quickly as you do more and more searching and become more and more familiar with your target market. We have a property inspection checklist included in this chapter, and this is a checklist like all other checklists in this core course, and that it's a beginning checklist for you to build on over time. You certainly copy this and add to it the things that you like to keep an eye out for as you inspect the properties that you're pursuing. And a couple of notes here: we do recommend that you inspect each and every unit. So in the case of multifamily, if you're buying a quad or you're buying an 882 unit behemoth, you're going to walk every single unit and take notes on every single unit. And what this will do for you, besides making you very familiar with the property and some of the good things and bad things about the property, it gives you a real thorough understanding of what type of investment you might need to make to bring the property up to date, or replace what it might cost to replace missing or broken appliances, that sort of thing. So as you do your analysis of the property in your due diligence period, you can more accurately calculate what you're going to need to invest in this property to bring it to the quality that you need to have the property performing under, and gives you that much more ammunition as you adjust your price from your original offer based on real facts. It also gives you an opportunity to speak with tenants and learn what you can from the tenants that are willing to converse with you. You can often find out some pretty interesting information from tenants that will help you in your negotiations as well. It also prevents the owner from having you avoid the worst units. Certainly, as you might expect, the 3 out of 100 units that the seller just for whatever reason can't seem to find the key for, or just can't seem to get in contact with the renter to allow you access to the unit, coincidentally will be those 3 units that are in the worst shape on the property. So by making sure you get in each and every unit, you avoid missing some of the worst units on the property. The other point I would make is that this inspection that you're doing for yourself is not a replacement for an official general inspection. You're going to want to have a professional inspect the property as part of your due diligence as well, and your lender is going to require it anyway. So moving through the checklist, I don't think that there's really anything that isn't really self-explanatory in the checklist, so we'll skip over the remainder of the checklist and move right to the last page of this chapter. And the last page of this chapter is entitled Investor Observations, 10 Questions. And these are some key questions that you need to ask about a property as part of your investigation before making an offer. And a couple of very important questions on this list. Number one, does the property have separate electricity and gas meters for every unit? If it doesn't, it's considered master metered, and you may have heard that term before. Master metered meaning that the owner pays utilities on behalf of most or all of the tenants, and that's a major red flag for us in commercial investing. It's a very large risk for you as an investor, since you can't control utility prices. They're very volatile, and as they rise, in some cases rather quickly, you're not going to be able to raise rents to meet that financial gap between what utilities used to cost and what they're costing at present. And in fact, there are many lenders in the US now that will not even loan on properties that are master metered because they consider it too much of a risk for their business. So it's not that you can't buy a master metered property, but you really need to convince yourself that it's a property worth going after, even though it's master metered. There are some solutions. Certainly you could change the property from a master metered property to a separately metered property, and if the expense of that change still results in your financials working out, then certainly you could consider that option. You'd also have to take into account whether or not the infrastructure of that particular property could even handle that change to its infrastructure. So definitely something to think about. The second point I would make about this checklist, number 3, ask why the owner is selling. It's very key that you understand what the seller's motivation is for selling. Typically, the first answer you'll get will either be they're retiring and moving to Florida and they just want to get out of the business, or they're tired of being a landlord and they just want to sell the property. And while that may be part of the story, it's typically not all the story. And it's very important for you to get to the bottom of why the owner is selling. And that will take asking that question over and over again, and in as many ways as you can think of asking. It's key to understand, number one, is the owner really motivated? Because if they aren't, it's just not worth negotiating with an unmotivated owner. But even if they are motivated, it's important to understand what their motivation is. That will certainly help you in your negotiations as you move forward. Then the last point I would make has to do with number 6. That is, would you say the property is comparable in physical appearance and repair condition to its immediate neighbors? Typically, if you have competition next to you, your appearance isn't necessarily going to be an attractor, but it may be a detractor. And what I would mean by that is, if your property is just a fantastic looking property and it's next to a property or two that are just average or good in appearance, it's not that a prospective tenant would skip those other properties and only walk into your leasing office to check into the availability of units, because it's just not much, it's not as enough of a differentiator. But what will happen is, if your property is next to other comparable properties and it's much worse in appearance, it is a possibility that a prospective tenant would skip over making a trip to your leasing office and only visit the ones beside you. So that needs to factor into your analysis of the property. If your competition's right there next to you, and buying this property means you're going to have to do some exterior work, you need to factor the cost of that into purchasing the property. So with that, I think we've covered all the major highlights on this chapter, and look forward to talking to you on Chapter 3.